Indeed, this is France's finest. That's not just exaggeration in the title. Hopefully you know a little bit about their work. Haut et Carole was founded in 1992.
Yep.
And Carole, you were there from the beginning. Caroline, you joined very soon after in 1995. The company obviously has a very, very rich film history. Films like Ma Vie and Rose, The Class, The Lobster, Rocks.
Rocks, we just bought it.
Oh, you just bought it,
as
okay.
Distributors.
As distributors, that's playing here. And then more recently, an amazing TV output of shows like The Returned, The Last Panthers, The Young Pope, The New Pope. Are we going to get the old Pope next? We'll talk about that. And here on the film side, at Göteborg Film Festival, they have Only the Animals, A Bigger World. They co-produced and will distribute The County. And A Perfectly Normal Family will play.
We opened the film in June.
June, okay. So that's in the Nordic competition here, and you will release in France. So we're very honored that you could spend some time with us today. I would like to just first ask, obviously, Haut et Carole was this amazing production powerhouse and distribution for feature films. France is such a cinephile nation. Cinema is God, or it was. How and why did you move into episodic work, and why was it the right time to do that?
I think Caroline should answer that.
Well, I think we did it out of taste, which is basically the mantra of this company, because we are really incapable of doing something for the bad reasons. The bad reasons being, okay, maybe it's the right thing to do. No, it's not the right thing to do. It's something we like. And I was personally drawn into TV since I was little. So I thought at some point, storytelling, let's play around that. But it was almost 15 years ago. And at that time, in France, to start making TV was just bizarre. People were looking at us saying, but why are you getting into TV? It was almost shameful. It was very difficult when you were calling the agents, because they were saying, but why do you want my directors and my actors to get into TV? So at first, I was not really easy, and we made it even more difficult, starting with a show called Xanadu, which was a family saga in the porn business, which was supported by Arte. Arte always being this amazing, daring channel. And everybody was looking at it like, my God, where is this coming from? But it was really exciting. So it started this way.
Okay. And was it really hard to get directors, especially, or writers who had been working in cinema to make the switch? It seems quite easy now.
I guess it's been really progressive over the years. And now, it's funny because we have now agents, to follow up on what Caroline was saying, who represent like really very famous actors and say, well, now we think it's time for this actor or this actress to start TV, so maybe we should try to find something together. So it's really, times are changing, obviously.
Yeah. On the flip side, for feature films, is it harder to get people excited about feature films when it seems like TV is where a lot of the action is? Sorry if there are any filmmakers.
Well, feature film is being complicated, as in every country. I think it's very unpredictable. Some people spend a lot of money with big stars, and the films that just flop, and some films very, out of the radar work well, but it's complicated, so people really don't know don't really know in what they should invest or what to do. So it's becoming, I guess, like everywhere, but I think we are still a bit lucky because we have, I think one of the real things we have is we have a lot of theaters and still some cinephiles. So, we are lucky to be able to release films from everywhere, and there's still this appetite for films. So I think that's why we keep doing it.
But I think it's a response which is a bit subdued. In fact, Carole believes, and she's right, that everything is a question of trend, and we see it because there is a huge speculative bubble around TV, which everybody is saying how long it is going to last. And I think we are absolutely sure, and we're just, saying that today, that cinema will be the new TV. But we don't know when it's going to happen. That's the only problem. But we believe this is going to be like a wave, people coming back. And the two elements
back
are
to
going
cinema.
to cinema, and the two elements are going to be communicating much more than they have been up to now.
Okay. I just know as an audience member, I've got to leave my house sometimes.
Exactly.
I cannot
Yeah.
just look at my phone or the screen. We
Exactly.
need to go be with other people.
And
So
see people,
cinema.
real people. It's true.
But when we really started being interested in TV at a commercial level was more than 20 years ago. We were in Rotterdam, and one night we were supposed to take a train back to Paris, and we watched The Kingdom by Lars von Trier. We missed our train, we bought The Kingdom, and we released it. It was the first release of Ciné Cité Léal, which is the biggest cinema theater in France. We released it there. Okay. So obviously we had a bizarre mind already thinking that those two means of communication were going to be were going to be, the next trend.
And did you release all parts of it? How
Yeah,
did
yeah,
that-
In
okay.
two parts, and there was a break for beers, actually. So we had a partnership with a beer company, I can't remember which one. So it was quite fun.
Yes, I think you need beer for Lars. I want to talk about some shows specifically, and I think The Returned is an amazing place to start. Like you said, it wasn't the first. Xanadu was the first one you did, but I think The Returned was the first time I thought of French TV in a new way, as something very international, that very approachable, a bit of genre. Can you talk a little bit about how The Returned was developed? Where did the original idea come from? How hard was that to put together?
I mean, it's interesting what you're saying because, and we had discussions with some producers' friends who say, "Oh, we are very complementary because you are working a lot with directors, even for TV." And I think we've been working on the development of The Return for a few years, like 3 years maybe. Mm-hmm. And finally, Caroline saw the first film of Fabrice Gobert in Cannes. And you felt, wow, this is exactly the style, the visuals we are looking at. And actually, Fabrice came on board to write the scripts, and so it was really a show that was the complete show of a director, writer, and we actually team up with directors very early on all our shows, actually.
But he had a great quality, Fabrice Gobert, because I didn't know the guy. It was his first feature, and it was at Un Certain Regard. And I look at this bio, and I see that before making films, he was working into TV, and he was working into teen series, basically 26 minutes. He was shooting in 2 days, and I thought, boy, this is the guy, because you never know how a film director is going to react to a TV, rhythm of production and time frame and everything. And Fabrice was extraordinarily open to it. The Return was a film that we produced 10 years before. So it was also a start, and that's why Canal Plus was interested in doing a series. And I have to say, without Canal Plus belief in it, we would have given up, because it was extremely difficult development, and every time we were not finding the right energy to keep going, they were telling us, no, guys, we are behind you. You have to make this series. We won't let you down. And this is amazing, because it's rare to find a, broadcaster that would be so sure this had to be done.
And did you know then that it would have great international potential? Because I don't think we had seen that many foreign language shows break out. I mean, maybe The Bridge and...
Actually, the series was financed at the time with Zodiac, and there was no minimum guarantee up front. Okay. We were financed out of Canal Plus Media. And the sales really started we were all very happy, but quite surprised it went so well. And actually, the sale to Channel 4 made a big difference. And then we were able to sell it to Sundance Channel after that. But we have to say the bidding war war is maybe a big word, but for the UK was quite interesting.
It was a bold choice on their part. It was J. Hunt at that time that was at the head of programming at C4, and she was just believing in the project, and they decided to do this crazy thing, which was to put the ads were in French, subtitled in English. It was like, what is this thing, And they put it in the slot of Homeland on the at 9 p.m. on Sunday night, I believe. And it was huge, because it was what made the difference. We had a hint of the international appeal right from the beginning, when Paul Abbott wanted to buy the remake rights on the basis of the 2 first episodes that he had read, and we thought, oh, maybe there is something, but of course, not for our show, for the scripts being redone. We didn't think the show itself was going to travel so well.
And back to that creative journey, you'd made the film, you said 10 years before. What was it about that world or that story that you were confident could go episodic and had more life in it? What was special about the story?
Well, the film was a cult film in the sense that nobody wanted to see it, but the people who want to see it were really raving about it, and it was a great director, Robin Campillo, who had a great career since then. But basically, everything that he didn't want to develop in the film, which was a dramatic aspect of this story, we thought, and it was a frustration, I have to say, as producers, we thought maybe there is something that TV can do better than cinema will do, because we need to really unfold the story and the characters, which the
Just
film...
having more time, really, to go
yes,
deeper.
having another way of seeing things, and that's why it's very interesting. The 2 films are actually, echoing each other. I mean, the series and the film are echoing each other in an interesting way.
Yeah. Are you still working with Fabrice on anything?
Speaking with him regularly, he did a great show without us, that he did with Arte called Mito. And
I think they are shooting their second season right now.
Okay.
So he's busy.
Yeah. And what about moving into English language? That was Last Panthers?
Yeah.
Why was that something that appealed to get on board with? Or at what stage did you come on?
It's always been, I think we've never really made any difference between TV and film. And in films, because we were distributors, but also co-producers, we always, we love to work with other producers. We feel it's a very rich exchange and way of co-producing, learning from each other. So when we have stories, basically, if the story has a natural way of being told in different countries, we go for it.
And it was not only English, actually. It was French and Serbian.
Different languages. And we approached it as we did for co-production, and we worked with Peter Carlton at Warp, who we knew from the film business when he was actually working at Channel 4. Yeah. And we just made it work as we would have worked on a film, except it's even easier in TV because you don't have to match the regulations, the co-production treaties. You just need to bring your own channel and try to make it work, and then it becomes a very interesting process in terms of production. On the ground, because you need to.
Where was that shot?
It was shot in Marseille. It was a bit of it was shot in London, and the rest of it was shot in Serbia.
Okay. And what was interesting also is to approach 2 great talents, were Jack Thorne, who scripted the series, and Johan Rank, who ended up doing Chernobyl last year. And it was wonderful because we were all creating something. We didn't know exactly what was going to be the tone of it. Johan wanted to come back to Europe and do an entire series, because at that point he had only been working in Hollywood, doing parts. And that's also something interesting, is to bring back those great talent that went to Hollywood and say, look, guys, maybe you can do something in Europe that where you will retain your vision as a director. And this has been really proven true with him. Yeah. And you asked me where it was originated from. A journalist came to see us, Jérôme Pierrat, and he wanted to make a feature out of it. And we thought, look, there's too much to say to make a feature out of that. So let's try to develop it as a series.
And you mentioned that sort of scale of the European work that can be very ambitious, but also maybe a bit more personal than working in Hollywood. Where do you see the sort of... Yesterday we were talking about the European drama market. Where do you see that right now? Does it feel like it's sort of at the right level? You can make projects of real ambition and scale, but also not copycat American shows?
And we can team up with, as we are doing with Fertile Question that Frederick mentioned, is teaming up Arte and Hulu to work together. So I think there are really ways of being ambitious with great sales agents as well, who are really on board very early on. and try to make shows that make sense for us as Europeans.
I think Europeans have something to offer, definitely, to great talents.
But I guess
either went to Hollywood or coming from Hollywood, and because there is an artistic vision that can be conceived as a whole, and also I will say the capacity of working in those international TV series that are organically, good storytelling and telling stories that need to be told from a European point of view, mixing countries. In the US, it's very, US-centered. So that's it.
Yes. And when we say Europe, I mean, we work a lot with Israeli talents. I mean, it's not only Europe. I mean, it's basically non-American somehow.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Or maybe it's maybe hard to work with Chinese talents. I don't know. I mean, I know some people can, and we'll. I mean, we have worked before, but I mean, I guess what's around Europe is quite a natural landmark.
I think it would be amazing to talk a little bit more about the new Pope, the young Pope. How did that get into your world?
What we were explaining, like we have had relationships with Whiteside for years, trying to make films together, and at some point they came to present us what was the premise of the young Pope,
which was few pages,
and
amazing ones.
And was Jude Law and everybody attached to
that?
No,
it
was way before that.
They were only a few pages.
Paolo Sorrentino was attached, which was enough.
The master was there. And we felt, wow, it's amazing. Let's try to be on board. And Canal Plus responded very fast. And that's how it started, really. And Sky was already attached to the producing, and then HBO came in as the fourth broadcaster. And I think it really could work in such a big scale with so many broadcasters, because of Paolo, who is, such a strong talent that everybody was quite, respectful of his idea and his vision. So.
And great producers.
And great producers, of course. Yeah.
And we are really minority co-producers. What was important for us is to be able to step in right from the beginning and believe in it, and finding partners in France that were ready to follow us. But really the work that has been done by Lorenzo Mieli and Mario is quite exceptional.
Yeah. And, with somebody like Sorrentino, had you worked with him on the film side, releasing his films or co-producing? No. From the treatment that you saw, a page or two, what did you think was going to be special, especially working with Paolo on an episodic work about a pope? Why was that a creative mix that appealed to you, other than the fact he's a genius?
I guess, from the pages you could already see his vision, his take on such a great area. Arena, sorry. And it was distinctive. It was...
it was obviously a subversive setting, and he was not going to do something that would be expected. So we read it, it was exciting, but what was even more exciting is to not know what we was going to do with it and to want to see it. So, most of the time I have to say that when we are with great talents, they draw us into their world and we want to follow them. And in terms of risk-taking, I think it's very close from what we always did in cinema. Let's go for it. We have no idea where we are going, but we want to get there.
Are there ever any projects that you love and want to board, but you can't convince the French broadcasters to come on? Is there anything that feels too risky for some of the broadcasters to join you?
Well, we don't have many opportunities in France. I have to say that's also one of the reasons we like to work.
You've only got a few doors to knock on.
And we have been working essentially with Canal Plus and Arte, but when it comes to the private broadcaster, it's not really up their alley. The public service, France Télévisions, has been extremely conservative up to now. I have to say that it's only TF1 which seems to be opening up and be more daring, and it will be really partners we are looking forward to try to find something common. But I'd rather have an option to work with everybody else in the world and not being only contained in France, for sure.
Yeah. Carole, same. Yeah, that's how it is. I mean, do you think the public broadcaster will evolve in this sort of new landscape?
They say they won't.
They say they will.
They won't. They will, maybe.
Okay.
They're too afraid. They're afraid of the shadows, so
really.
this is a big problem when you're doing this job.
Okay. What about the
and all
Nordics?
of this is recorded, of course, so
Yeah.
they will hear us.
Yeah. Yes. But what about, the Nordic broadcasters or Nordic producers? Have you worked with the Nordics quite a bit yet, or what could be the potential?
Well, we would love to be working with the
in
Nordics.
film, we work a lot with
films.
either. I mean, as we mentioned, a few films, and I was very curious to see Lucas Moodyson's series, which is not available in France yet.
Yeah.
But
Josta on HBO Nordic.
yeah, very very curious because we know him from film, and they are great talents. So yes, we would love to, and we have had a few meetings with the people from the Norwegian channel, and
well, we are following
Danish
what SVT is
producers.
doing,
Yeah,
DR is
so-
doing, and the Nordic countries have been really leading the way 10 years ago, even before, with amazing, groundbreaking series. So we really feel that with Israel, the Nordic have been the one with, basically being able to do astonishing things with not a lot of money. So creativity has been central and very, really a lesson taught to us for sure.
Yeah, but there haven't been a lot of Nordic French.
No, actually.
Arte is actually
Partnerships,
very
yeah.
active in co-producing series.
And Alexandre Piel is here.
Oh,
I'm
Alexandre
sure
is
to say
here.
that.
So we have been talking about.
Great.
Yeah, thanks to you. I mean, we have a lot of shows that come to France. I'm curious to see. I mean, I've read the article on Viaplay, and they are doing more and more international series, which is great. I guess, I mean, one of the reasons is, I mean, natural co-productions between Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark.
That's very organic.
Organic.
isn't it?
So,
You don't need us.
is there a need for other
Maybe
countries?
they need you.
But we'd love to.
Maybe there'll be some discussions after. I mean, what would you say for just the financing landscape and production landscape right now? I mean, we hear about this golden age, or it's past a golden age. It's a boom. We're sitting here looking at trailer after trailer of everything that looks great. There's so much great stuff being made. Is it easy to get a new project financed and
But I think
off the ground?
it's really worrying what's happening. In fact, I
Too
think
much.
we should be careful not to let ourselves being drawn into that, because quantity is really winning over quality. I am afraid we are not giving the projects the time they need to be properly developed, and the hunger of the platforms is not really helping. Because they want more every day, and what's new is more important than what's good.
What's amazing. Yeah.
So it's something I think producers have to be very, very careful about, because I think we are going to lose grasp on the project we are developing and nurturing. Projects need to be nurtured, and talents need to be protected also from this frenzy. So we should be overexcited. I am a bit depressed. And I think 5 years ago was a better time.
I don't know. We don't always agree. How could I say that? Mechanically, with the surge of the new platforms, there is a need for quantity. So I think there will be opportunities. It depends on, of course, on what they want and our capacity, as Caroline is saying, to be able to do. But I think what worries me more, it's linked to what you're saying, is will producers be still able to take time to develop, meaning own rights, and not work for the platforms? And I think that's the big issue we are facing right now. And that's why we are thinking of making alliances with what we call creative producers all around the world to try to be a bit stronger in this world. Because if we end up doing show after show for 10% of fee. I mean, it's not what we are looking for. So that's.
And these alliances with other producers, is that something sort of formal you're trying to do, or is it more just
it's actually something we are working on right now. So it's not formalized, but I don't know if I should speak. I mean, it's no secret. I mean, many people have done it before. But it's mostly around on the initiative of a sales agent, like Studio Canal is regrouping companies around them, Fremantle, all these companies. So, but we want to stay independent from sales agents.
And have you? You mentioned that you're doing a show that has Hulu involved. Have you worked with Netflix or Amazon? What would be the right scenario to do that, or are you just not interested?
It would be. We cannot say we are not interested, and we have been in talks with platforms, and basically we will work with them for sure. But Carole was right to mention that. I think the role of the producer has to be really protected, and clearly some platforms that are stepping into Europe right now are really trying to consider the producer and understood that the producer is the very important part of this triangle writer, director, producer. That there is an ecosystem when they enter France that is very peculiar. We have been, I believe, protecting not only our cinema, our system, but the world cinema. When you see that 80% of the money of the films shown in Cannes last year had some French money, I think we have something that we have to preserve. And what's interesting is to see that the newcomers, the new platforms are understanding that. So ultimately, we'll be working with them for sure.
Yeah.
But nothing yet. You've not done a concrete deal with
Nothing
Netflix
we could
or
announce today. No,
that's it.
Okay. You mentioned this sort of triangle of director, writer, producer, and I'm wondering. We talked a bit yesterday about how it's working for some places, and in France, does it? Such an auteur legacy in France. Does that still continue to TV? That the director is really important, or is the sort of writer seen as more of the? Do you have this showrunner model in France, or is it a case by case?
I would say it's neither the director being. It depends on the shows and the TVs you were mentioning. Like Arte is very sensitive to the directors as well as Canal+. But if you go to France Télévisions, I'm sure they don't really care on the director. But on the other hand, we don't really have the show running style of. I think the only one we can mention is Éric Rochant, the Bureau, who really was able to create a writer's room and train new screenwriters, and he was really dedicated to the show as a director, as a writer, and it's very unusual. Until now, he's been the only one to do that.
But there is something new in France for many years, and you're right to mention it. The director was the king, know. And many screenwriters were very frustrated with the situation. Now they are really regaining an influence, and they are thriving on it, and they are right, because it was very unfair that for so many years they were like nobody was talking about them. And we haven't been really good storytellers. I think it's a big problem of the French drama. It's like something is stopping us. Maybe we have too much self-irony or rationalism, cartesianism. There is really something that has to do with the French mind. And there is a lot of thinking right now about how to invent a new way of teaching how to write and learn how to write.
But I think you're right. It's also a question of culture, and if it leads us to maybe show at some point the clip of Possession, we work on Possession. We work with a screenwriter in Israel who has such a creative and vision that it's very hard to find it in our culture. It seems like when it goes in such a world, it feels like we are not daring to go too far.
It's really a question of storytelling. It's something we don't have naturally.
But it's coming, and you can see now in novels. We can see new writers who are really taking fiction really seriously, and I think it's changing.
And do you think those people, new writers, are going to learn at film school, or do they need training on the job, or where are they going to be able to learn?
Well, there are
skill?
two actually direction with a lot of how do you know how you call that is a mission that are the government, the CNC are asking people to think about, and there are two directions. One will be more with screenwriters that will be quite evolved screenwriters. And there is actually another initiative that we took, myself and one of the executive of the Canal Plus drama, to try to think about a way to get as soon as possible in the schools, to get them to write and to open up to imagination, to storytelling. Needless to say, it's going to be a huge thing to put together, and I don't see we will see the advantages of it if it's before 10 years. But why not? I think we have to try something that has not been tried before. Massification of storytelling's ability. Teaching kids to be able to tell their own stories, and I think it's a political issue in France too, because we need to need to be capable of representing ourselves, and with all the diversity of this country, which is one of our major issues as well.
You've mentioned Possessions already, so I would love maybe we can go ahead and talk about that show. It's in post-production.
Yes, it's in post-production
to hopefully launch later in end of 2020?
Yes, we don't have yet the dates, but it's a Canal Plus series, minority co-production with Israel, with Yes, that we co-produce with Quiddity in Israel. The showrunner is Shahar Magen, that we paired up with Valérie Zenati, with a French writer, and Shahar came up with quite an amazing story that at first we wanted to set up in France. And that's interesting also, because when we tried to set it up in France, the story was so imaginative that France was kind of resisting. And at some point, Canal Plus told us, but why don't we do it in Israel, within the French community? And it was such a great creative idea on their part, I have to say. And once it was written, we actually were lucky enough to get Thomas Vincent on board, who was just getting out of Bodyguard.
Yes.
And he was really in love with the script, and we needed a very strong vision for this series. So.
And how many episodes is it?
It's a mini-series. It's 6 episodes.
Okay.
And basically, actually, what you are going to see are the first images.
Yeah.
Nobody saw.
Okay. So
anything.
please.
And we were not allowed, really, so we were authorized,
So no photos of these images, no recording, please. And do you need to set it up any more than we have?
It's a work in progress promo reel, so hopefully it will make some sense for you. But
it was made for the London screenings next
up.
week or in 2 weeks.
Okay, so this is the very sneak peek. Let's have a look. We'll stay here and watch here. I really want to know what happened. Maybe I'll have to wait till the end of the year, but looks amazing. And did you also tell us a little bit more about Fertile Crescent, which Frederick mentioned?
Yeah, so Fertile Crescent, it's a working title, I warn you. So it was actually great, because I'm just not saying that because Frederick is here, but definitely when we pitched the project at Zerimania, we only had a few pages. We didn't have yet the showrunners, we didn't have financing, and we got few proposals by then by international sales agent, and one, a Fremantle, Christian Vesper, who came to us saying, look guys, I'm just in love with what you pitched, and it would be great for us to help you develop the project without having to find a broadcaster first. So basically they put up the money for development. And we are co-producing the series with Maria Feldman and Ethan Mansouri. Maria was a showrunner and one of the producers of Fertile Crescent, of Fauda. Ethan was a producer of One Hero's Fly, who won the Cannes series last year, and also Foxtrot. We won in Venice, and Carole and I were in Israel, and it was 4 years ago, and we went to meet Maria, telling her we really wanted to work with her because she was such a creative producer. And she said, well, I have this project. So it was starting in France, ending up in the Middle East with a bit of a British side to it. It was a very, very strong story, telling a lot about the world we live in today, and with this amazing capacities the Israeli has to catch up the time, you know. And she came up with the idea of pairing up again with Amit Cohen and Ron Leshem, who were the showrunners of False Flag, and Ron Leshem of Euphoria as well, the first series that was the Israeli ones. And after that, we had to find some partners. And what was great for us is the opportunity we had to pair up Hulu in the US and Arte in France, which was the first time they worked with each other. And everything had been going very well. We started the shooting last year with Oded Ruskin, with this Israeli director. Great French cast, great UK cast. James Purfoy, a bit like our star in it, even though he has a smaller role, but quite important one. And what else could I tell you? I mean, it was great. It was such a wonderful, wonderful team of people that we worked with. And I have to say co-production is such a complicated thing, because you have to know how to disagree on a daily basis with everybody and not fight, you know,
not fall out,
and like the disagreement, because you know that creatively it's going to lead you somewhere. And I have to say that working with Maria, you know, Ethan, Amit, and Ron is a riot.
Fantastic. We're out of time. This giant clock is flashing at me. But I would just like to what's next? What would be the dream kind of projects you're looking for?
Oh my God. Keep doing what we love to do.
More thrillers? Do you know directors you want?
We are not the one to say. It's the talents we are actually bringing in that have to tell us what they want to do, and we'll follow them.
Okay. Amazing.
No, it's true.
What a way to end. Thank you so much, Carole and Caroline, for joining us. That was fascinating. And they're going to be around for a few days.
Yep.
So please have a chat. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.